I've served in the military for almost 20 years. I actually met my wife while I was in high school. So before I joined the military, hits a 5,000-pound IED and catastrophic loss of everyone in that vehicle. You have to rely on your training. You have to rely on your faith. And ultimately, you have to rely on God. Roughly about 17 suicides per day.
This is the Manspiration Show with Abel Olumide.
Hi everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of the Manspiration Show with me, your host Abel Olumide. And on this show, we inspire men to grow, to become a better version of themselves, doing God's will. And today, I have the honor to bring on the show a very special friend that I met recently, and we talked about his experience and in the military. He served in the U.S. military for about 20 years, been married for almost 20 years to 19 years, and he's committed himself. He's a man of faith, he's a man of God, he's a man who is bold about sharing his faith. He's a dad of three, Paul Noel.
I originally served in the Tennessee Air National Guard, and then I transferred to West Virginia National Guard in 2009. My original unit, I actually served alongside my father in a airlift squadron there in Memphis. So when I transferred into the West Virginia National Guard, I spent about my first 2 years supporting missions into Iraq and Afghanistan as part of the global war on terrorism. And then I deployed myself to support the war in Afghanistan in 2011, serving in Kandahar province until early 2012. And then deployed again last year to the Middle East and supporting all of our military operations throughout the Middle East, predominantly in Syria, Iraq.
Wow, that's a lot of sacrifice right there. I consider what you do, serving in the military, as one of the most dangerous, most sacrificial career that you can ever commit yourself to. And I would say thank you for your service. Thank you so much. So family plays a big role.
It does.
Motivating you to.
It certainly does. I think because I was born into a military family, my father was active duty Army. I was actually born on a military base. So I grew up basically around the active duty military. I also had this innate sense, especially after 9/11, because I was in high school when that happened, that it was more of a duty to serve.
But I mean, going back to you got married at 19.
I did.
And then you joined the military at about the same time.
Right before.
Right before, yeah.
Mhm.
So how did you combine the two? Getting into marrying at that young age and then committing to serving your country, which is a great sacrifice, by the way.
Well, I've been very fortunate. So I met my wife when I was in high school. I met her a week before my 17th birthday. So we've been together more than half my life now.
Oh,
And my wife doesn't come from a military family, so it was all kind of unique. And she knew that was, when I was in high school, that was the direction I was going. Merging the two, you have to find that work-life balance in anything, whether that's, just your normal job or whether that's your family life. But it's also a key fact about finding a partner that helps balance that out too. To ensure that those scales are balanced, not just for your own personal sanity, but also just for the family's sake. Because as you said, we got married at 19. I had my first child when I was 20. By the time I was in my mid 20s, nearly 25, 26, we had 3 kids. And so my wife has always been that rock and has always been, the stability that I need in my life. Having someone who's there for you to help balance that military service or your job or your family, it is so key because I can't always be there. I can be there emotionally for her, and in the same that she can be there for me too when I'm not home, or if I have to go, on a temporary duty assignment or go to a military exercise or a deployment. I know that she can stand on her own 2 feet and she will lean on me when she needs to. But then when I rotate home, we can balance the scales back.
It's really a blessing to have a partner, a wife who could stand by you. Yeah, just say, "Hey, I've got your back. Keep going."
Especially, nowadays where, divorce rates are so high. You always have to realize you're not the same person when you're 18 as when you're in your 20s or when you're in your 30s, and neither is your spouse. So you have to ensure that you're both growing at the same pace so that one person is not. Exactly. Because I think also if you're not growing at the same pace, you grow apart. And you have to ensure, especially when you get married at an early age, that you're growing and evolving at the same time.
When you are on the field, and I'm just wondering, because knowing that you talk about being deployed to Africa, to Iraq, to many places, and you know that at any point in time, anything could happen. What goes through your mind, knowing that you have a family?
I can only speak for my own experience, but I tend to, because I am a believer, I rely heavily on my faith. Joshua 1:9 teaches us that, have I not commanded you, be strong, do not be afraid, and do not be discouraged. And you have to really take those words to heart that when you're in those situations, whether it's complex zones or hardships in life, you have to understand that, you have to rely on your training, you have to rely on your faith, and ultimately you have to rely on God and understand that He's with me in the moment. And you just have to commit yourself to that notion. Yeah. It is very sacrificial in a lot of ways. People who join the military, we know that combat, especially over the last 20 plus years, is a real part of life. Rely on your training, rely on your faith, and go with God.
Wow. Rely on your training, rely on your faith, and go with God. That's I believe that plays a huge role in helping you go through your years of serving on the field.
Well, it's not easy, obviously, especially when you talk about serving the citizens of the United States military capacity. Especially when you have a family at home, they're the ones who are gonna worry more about your well-being. Actually, a good friend of mine, from work said it the other day, and it really resonated with me. He said that military service can either push us away or draw us closer to God. And when he said it, I just was kind of taken back. I was like, that is so true. And pretty much everything in the Bible leads back to decisions, accountability. And I think with my kids, especially, and with my wife, I always repeat like two metaphors to my kids all the time. So the first metaphor is I tell my kids all the time is that life is like waves on the ocean. When you're at the top of the waves, you never think you're going to go back down. And when you're at the bottom of the wave, you never think you're gonna go back up. And I said, it's how you manage between the waves and you keep your faith and knowing that eventually you're going back. Hardships are gonna come. Things are gonna come into play that you didn't plan for, that you didn't expect, but you just have to manage the waves. And the other big one too is don't fight the riptide. So a riptide, for those who don't know, is a strong current at the coast that will drag you out to sea. And a lot of people, unfortunately, try to fight the current and they wind up getting exhausted and they drown. And so when I say it to my kids, they're always like, oh, your dad goes again. The way that you get out of a riptide is you let go. You let go, and then eventually you go parallel to the waves and you get back to shore. And so, just like any aspect of life or any hardship, sometimes instead of trying to control this situation, which I feel like, especially as men, we try to control a lot. But so, just like anything in life, especially the metaphor about the riptide, is sometimes you have to let go. You have to know that ultimately God's with you.
That's so good. That's an insight. Now you are taking me deeper, and I'm loving it. I'm really enjoying it. So I like that you touch on men trying to be in control, because we are in a generation and most of societies in the world believe that the should be strong. And because of that, most men, when they need help, they just feel, yeah, I've got to keep it all in. I can't appear to be weak. Because sometimes especially when you really need help as a man and you don't know how to really get it, and you feel if I express what I'm feeling right now, people think I'm weak, right? And the trauma that a lot of uh, people who serve in the army, in the military, are exposed to, many of them suffer from PTSD. Matter of fact, I have a statistics here that I put up. Said according to National Center for PTSD, PTSD is slightly more common among veterans than civilians. 7 out of every 100 veterans have PTSD.
I think, how men choose to compose themselves, I think a lot of time that is very ingrained in our culture. To your point that, if you're too emotional or if you show weakness, that it's not manly. The Bible teaches us that asking for help and humbling yourself is a sign. And I think far too many people try to self-soothe or don't seek help because of that, which is why those statistics are so high. I think the flip side of that is not only is PTSD in the military so high, military veterans, I think roughly about 17 suicide per day, per day. This is really the most unfortunate thing of returning veterans that we see in such high statistics. Seeking help is a sign of strength. It's not a sign of weakness. You're not weak because you are realizing that you're not in control of a situation emotionally that you need help from. And I think also it's become ingrained, especially post-COVID, that a lot of people want to self-isolate. And that's not how we're made. We're supposed to be part of the body. We're supposed to be part of that community, and the community helps during those times of struggle, whether it's financial, whether it's mental, whether it's just any hardship. And I think isolation only further plays into depression. I think isolation also plays into allowing yourself to root on those negative thoughts. So for a long period, and it just makes the situation much worse than if you would have sought help earlier to help uplift them and get them out of that situation mentally. Which is why I think it's so important nowadays is that I think the stigma is starting to change.
I'm so glad that some of the veterans are getting help. And I think as believers in Christ, the place of our faith and our hope in God also plays a great part. So just want to encourage any veteran out there who has been having a difficult time, and just like Paul said, and maybe you are having a suicidal thought or uh, experiencing depression, don't feel weak to ask for help, and know that help is there because at some point you might need it. And would you be able to share a story or some stories of some of the experiences
Sure.
you put here?
My deployment to Afghanistan in 2011. I was stationed in southern Afghanistan in Kandahar province. It's important to know Kandahar province is really the root of the Taliban movement in Afghanistan. And Shawali Khat is a region of Kandahar that is, it's a province that's towards the north of the Kandahar province. Now, it was some of the most intense and heavy fighting. And so, as part of my role, I worked with the intelligence, reconnaissance, and surveillance assets. So, we helped to build out all the targets, mapped out all of the pathways for vehicle movement, for helicopter movements, where all the presumed targets would be in the region, and really just layered in as much intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance platforms that we could 2 weeks prior to the operation. And then on day one, we brief up all of the route clearance teams. We brief up everyone, generals sign off on everything. They bless off on it. And unfortunately, the first vehicle of the route clearance team headed into Shawalipot district hits a 5,000-pound IED. And catastrophic loss of everyone in that vehicle. There were 5 National Guardsmen from Indiana, a very young 18-year-old soldier, and unfortunately, a father who re-enlisted so that he could deploy with his son. Ew. And the father was in the vehicle. So it basically stopped all operations because of the loss of life. By then one day, huge. That National Guard unit is in a very small town in Indiana. So they lost 5 family members.
That's
on that
a large
day.
percentage.
Exactly. So all operations were stopped. The military started an official inquiry, just to make sure that nothing was missed, that there wasn't some wrongdoing and it was really the first time in my military career where it made me question myself. It made me question my abilities or if I had done anything wrong. Thank God we were cleared of any wrongdoing. They determined that that IED could have been there for months or possibly years. And just that the weight of the vehicles that were kind of stacked up going down the road was just enough weight to IED off. It was one of those things where I could have just spiraled and just that mentality of, am I responsible? I've been very fortunate. When I came home, it was still on my mind. It was one of those things that it took me a long time to really get over. And I don't think for military veterans that we ever truly heal those wounds, but you have to find a way to balance it. And so the balance for me was I use it as a motivator to know that I would be doing those individuals a disservice to wallow sorrow and grief for the loss of life, but that I need to continue to press on, but also I need to ensure that no matter what the task is or what the ultimate end goal is, that I put as much effort into it to ensure that something like that never happens again.
I'm glad that you are able to find a balance to how to position it so that you don't get into that spiral.
And I think really important to try to, in those types of hardships, whether it's military or civilian life, you have to find that little granular of hope and hold on to it. And so yes, was the situation catastrophic and could I have spiraled? Definitely. But I was determined to stand on my faith, knowing that I'd done the right thing in the moment and that I was going to ensure that moving forward that it their loss wasn't for nothing and that we're going to continue on because it's credit to their because they serve the same way that we serve.
And that's a very positive way to look at it. If you are given up, it feels like there are sacrifices. So, and instead of allowing that to discourage you, you actually use that to encourage yourself so that their life, you keep honoring their lives by doing what they will have done.
A lot of military veterans, we wear these bracelets. And mine is for 18-year-old young man that was on that first vehicle. So it's like a daily reminder for me. I wear it every day. And so it is that.
You wear multiple of it if you...
No, I mean, you could. I just choose to wear this one.
That's really emotional.
It's one of many stories, unfortunately. War is one of those things that it's always going to be a part of our history.
Well, it's been a great conversation with you, and I just want to appreciate everyone who serve in the military, and not just only those who serve in the military. I want to take this moment to appreciate every man who put their lives on the line for their family, for their country, who pursuing purpose every day to make sure that they do their part in contributing to the society, to the family, and ultimately to the kingdom. So we appreciate you, but especially, I want to say all our military men or the veterans, thank you for your service. Thank you for committing to serving your country. And we do appreciate you. So just before we go, what is your final word to viewers or listeners who are joining the show?
So I would say I think many people are hesitant to come to Christ, whether it's because they rely on their own misunderstanding or they just feel like there's fear or a feeling that they lack the worthiness. And I'm just here to tell you that you're never too flawed to come to Christ. Just admit Christ is greater than your weakness and he can heal you. And obviously, you have to humble yourself. God can heal your heart, He can heal your wounds, and He can uplift you and progress you forward. The military teaches us to always be pressing forward, and it's not about perfection, but it's about moving. And Christ can do that for your life. So if you ever feel like you're not worthy enough or that you're too flawed, you're never too flawed. So you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior.
Wow. Amen. Amen to that. And it is not about perfection.
So it's about pressing forward. It's about pressing forward, not about perfection. It's about the progress. Yeah.
Yeah. God is not looking for people who are already made. He's looking for people who he can make. Correct. Yeah. So I appreciate that. And thank you for watching. If this show has blessed you, helped you in any way, feel free to share, subscribe, leave comments in the comment section, and I will be glad to read from you. Until the next episode, thank you for joining. This is the Manspiration Show. Join us in the next episode. Bye for now.
This is the Manspiration Show with Abel Olumide.